The title is not clickbait. It is not an exaggeration. This game is so bad that it is actually going to be the last AAA game that I ever purchase. Because just like with every other AAA game that is coming out nowadays, this game ended up being a complete rug pull. And it is obvious that DICE has no intentions of actually turning this game around or adding any meaningful content that people actually want. The new map that came out when Season 2 launched is completely fucking terrible. The weapon balance is terrible. The new VHS 2, which is the same bullpup, by the way, that completely destroyed 2042, is now in the game, and yes, it's overpowered. Statistically, at first sight, it looks balanced, like, sure, 25 damage per shot is a little high for a gun that has a pretty high fire rate, but whatever. And then it turns out you could just kit the gun out to basically dominate it at virtually all ranges except for, like, maybe super long range, right? So the gun is in the game, the very gun that, for me at least, killed 2042. I mean, at least I noticed that 2042 had like a severe drop-off in matchmaking quality and players when the VHX, is what they call it in that game, came out and started dominating the meta. Which, by the way, DICE, in their infinite wisdom, when that was dominating that game, they decided to nerf the gun by buffing the gun. I'm not kidding. I actually have a video on my channel about it. I think it's still up. I don't think I privated it at all. I think it's still public, but it was astonishing, right? Like, they're like, okay, we know the gun is like really powerful, right? So we're just gonna buff it at all ranges. I don't know what the thought process is behind that, but whatever. It's the same dev team that we're rocking with here in BF6, and it shows, right? So when this game first came out, I did not mind the maps too much. I realized that there was a bit of a problem. Most of these maps don't even remotely fit the blueprint of a traditional Battlefield map, which is really what makes Conquest fun. It's the maps usually, right? Like, how well made are the maps? These maps, by definition, are not, like, inherently bad. If you were to put these maps in, like, Call of Duty Ground War, it wouldn't be that bad, right? It's just the fact that this is not Call of Duty, right? And DICE doesn't seem to understand that this is not Call of Duty. They modeled this game around trying to steal what actually isn't working for Call of Duty anymore, right? So, like, there's this rumor that DICE or EA plans on making Battlefield a yearly launch title, right? The thing is, Call of Duty players actually don't want Call of Duty to do that anymore, right? So they're copying something that people actually don't want. On top of that, Battlefield 6 does not have traditional Battlefield style movement. There's plenty of YouTubers out there, like Enders, for example. If you just watch his gameplay, the way he moves around is exactly what people don't like, right? If you ask the average casual, I know plenty of them, and I've seen plenty of complaints online that mimic the same sort of sentiment. If you ask the average casual, what they think about the gameplay loop and why they stopped playing, they're probably going to, at some point, mention the movement spam being a big factor. This killed X-Defiant. This is why Call of Duty is, kind of niche nowadays. Every FPS kind of dies the same way, and coincidentally, the movement spam and the capacity for movement abuse is actually the one shared quality between all of these games. And it seems like every development studio is completely blind to this. It's like they don't have the ability to, like, look back in time and see, like, what made Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 2 and COD 4 so popular. It was a fact that the games were basic. It was a pick-up-and-play experience. The skill gap mainly came down to map knowledge and weapon proficiency and other small factors as well. Yes, there was cheese in the form of, like, weird perks, and then MW2 was like one-man army, noob tubes, and all that, but, like, whatever, right? The core game was still really good, death streaks or not. Every game nowadays does not feel unique. So back then, Battlefield had a very unique identity, very unique feel to it. The game played in a very unique way when you compared it to Call of Duty or Halo, and now every game feels the exact fucking same. and it is a catastrophe. It basically it's not working for BF6. I'm sorry, but like the movement system on a fundamental basis, and you can't even argue this, on a fundamental basis, having movement spam the way it exists in this game just undermines any attempt the developer might make at designing their game to feel unique, designing certain maps to flow differently based off of XYZ factors. All of that is entirely undermined by movement spam because that becomes the dominant meta that basically differentiates you between literally everybody else. Is how severely can you spam the movement to throw off players. You could slap on any weapon. Usually players don't, though. They usually just stick with the same top 3, maybe top 2 meta weapons with a meta loadout, and they play like they're playing Quake. And this basically makes the game feel like horse paste. It actually makes the game feel generic. Every game plays like this, and it started with Modern Warfare 2019, and lo and behold, no one liked that game, right? It's kind of funny that people are having nostalgia about that game, but if anyone has like 2 brain cells to rub together, nobody liked the game. The game died so fast, they were like sending out panic surveys through people's like email addresses and shit to ask like why they stopped playing. It was a giant fucking catastrophe. No one liked that shit. And then every COD game that came out basically became progressively more and more hated and less popular, and now we're sitting at Black Ops 7, which somehow got less sales than World at War from 2008. But anyways, I digress. This game is cooked. The entire franchise is cooked. DICE is cooked. BF7 is cooked. I don't care how they attempt to market Battlefield 7. I am not going to purchase the game. And the utter rug pull that I experienced with Battlefield 6 is basically preventing me from ever wanting to purchase a AAA game ever again, and I won't, okay? Because, like, first off, every game that I've purchased in the past few years, with very few exceptions, has been a complete waste of money. It's just objectively was all waste of money, you know, because the games just were not designed to be fun. They were designed to sell microtransactions, you know, like the ticket price was the foot in the door. And once they get your foot in the door, they start throwing ads at your face, and then you realize that the game's not really that well made, and then you're just kind of sitting there going like, wow, so if I'm not a cash cow, there's virtually no dopamine to be had in this game. You know, it's just the whole dopamine reward system is entirely within how much you're participating in the shop and the battle pass and some other extrinsic bullshit. That's not a game that I want to play, and that ends up, it turns out that's like most AAA games nowadays, and virtually every free-to-play game. So yeah, if you made it this part of the video, I definitely recommend just not even giving Battlefield 7 a chance, because if the rumors are true and this is going to be like a yearly release thing, it's going to be hardcore slop. Every game that you play, or I mean buy, is going to get worse, like incrementally worse, in very subtle ways year over year, because I'm sure DICE, you know, sees the utter Stockholm syndrome that's like afflicting the entire Call of Duty community, and they're like, oh, I really want that, you know, that's just guaranteed money, you know. But I don't think it's going to work. I mean, DICE doesn't seem to realize that you kind of already need to have good games in order for a player base to get addicted to begin with. Right, so DICE is kind of operating on this assumption that it's easy to like Stockholm gamers out, and what they fail to realize is that no one really cares, right? Look how low the player base is for BF6. Look how many bots are in the average lobby. Even when I turn crossplay on, the matchmaking is sparse. It is not looking good. The utter feeling in the air on this match that you're watching right now, at least the feeling that I felt, was the same feeling that I had in the early days of X Defiant, when, this is like before they announced the shutdown, but this was like a couple weeks after the game died. I had this weird feeling like kind of come up over me, right? Like, oh wow, this game's gonna get shut down soon, isn't it? You know, that's the same feeling that I'm getting with BF6. It feels like a game that is like 10 years old, that is a couple of months, like just months away from a shutdown announcement. That's what this game feels like to me. And one topic that I want to cover before I close out this video is the utter brilliance of the new map. And of course, I'm being sarcastic here, because the new map is fucking terrible. It's actually one of the worst maps I've ever seen in any FPS game. I understand the idea, I respect it, but it doesn't work. And it's because the map looks... I mean, fundamentally, if you just look at the map design, the whole map layout, doesn't it scream AI generated to you? Like, the whole layout of it, to me personally, like, that was the first impression that I got whenever I loaded into my first match of that map. Something just told me, like, this is AI generated. This whole layout, you know, the whole, like, design process here was just completely thought out by ChatGPT or something. Like, that's what it felt like. But layout be damned. I understand the idea. Okay, the trenches, the central point, you know, the little fucking tunnel thing, etc. Right? The problem is, right, like I mentioned earlier, the movement kind of undermines everything. So you're supposed to play the map a little slowly on the outer skirts, right, the trench area. That's a whole other issue, though. Like, if you were to emerge out of the trench, there's like 6 different directions you could just be shot from. The map, the visibility is so bad, and the, you know, layout is so bad, the lines of sight are so bad, that it is actually the map that forces me to run thermals on my weapons, because not only can you see across the entire fucking map, like it's just a flat plane almost, but you also can't see anything, right? So I know that I play with my TV kind of far away from me, but I should be able to kind of make out, you know, enemies at a distance still, right? I can't with that map. It just looks like there's just shit pasted everywhere. It looks like a tornado just ripped through and just sent props flying everywhere. It's a terribly designed map. It looks awful. It doesn't... I mean, maybe if they changed, like, the time of day, it might kind of, like, fix some of the visibility issues, but still, it's just... everything just blends together. It looks like paste. And the line of sight issue that I mentioned is the worst that I've ever seen in any game. I don't think any map in any game that I've ever played has had that issue before, where just entire sections of the map you cannot even traverse. Because the minute you do, you are open to be fired from like 3 to 6, maybe even more different directions, from different like heights too. They have a weird height thing where, like, one part of the map overlooks the other part of the map, like some weird D-Day fucking layout. And it's awful, right? Like, it's great if you're a sniper, but it's really awful if you are someone that just likes Battlefield. You just like to run around and, you know, conquest, right? It's just not fucking fun. And the fact that it was the only map that released with Season 2, and there was just no variety at all, that blew my mind. You know, one thing they could do that would, you know, maybe be like a little bit of an interesting idea is maybe make a variant of the map that's night with night vision goggles, and not the weird kind of like night vision goggles that we get with the new mode that like runs out of batteries in like 5 seconds, but actually, you know, like give us night vision goggles that have like a finite range, like with real NVGs, right? So that way, the terrible map design is not a problem anymore, because you're kind of limited by range, like what you could see, right? Yeah, you could run like thermals and shit, but just make a quick rule where it's like, if you want to use thermals, you can't have NVGs equipped while you're aiming down sight or something, right? You have to like unequip the NVGs and then ADS to the thermal. It would kind of like offer a little bit of balance, but still, that would be a pretty good idea. But unfortunately, I don't work at DICE because I have a brain, and I definitely would not pass for a diversity hire. So unfortunately, I am kind of locked out from sharing my very basic idea that anybody else could have came up with a studio that is not ran by intelligent people. But anywho, that's it for the video. I really hope that this turns around. I don't have faith in it personally, because I just know how these studios operate. just look at what they do. Just look at their track record. It's just not good. Especially EA, fucking terrible company. But anywho, I hope they could turn this around. I heard a rumor that apparently most of the resources were already moved off of BF6 and moved to, just moved to the next title. So that's why I'm not really holding out any faith here. But if they could just like maybe ramp up the production of maps, like maybe kind of like slide down the production of like skins that no one is buying anyways, and just kind of ramp up the maps, and make them good maps too. That might help. Maybe if they restructure some of the maps, like this current map here, this New York map or some shit. This map, it should be bigger. It should have like vehicles. Why are we just running around like it's a giant Call of Duty map? This is just not good. So yeah, that's it for this video. I don't really upload anymore, so I doubt this will be pushed out in the algorithm, but I hope it does. Fingers crossed. And if you made it to this part of the video, I appreciate you, and see you in the next video whenever I decide to upload again. So peace.